There were a lot of reasons why Wisconsin voters decided on a drastic change in direction in 2010. And Governor Scott Walker wanted to remind people of that during his State of the State address on Wednesday.
8 years ago, things were not very good in our state. There were double-digit tax increases, billion-dollar budget deficits, and record job loss. State aid to schools and local governments were cut with no tools provided. UW tuition was continuing to go up faster than inflation. And Wisconsin consistently ranked in the bottom 10 states for businesses.
Walker spent the bulk of his speech talking about how the state overcame those challenges under his leadership. But there is still plenty of work to do, and he wants the legislature to get it done this year. Much of that agenda came as no surprise Wednesday afternoon. That very morning, he proposed a new $50 million a year investment in rural economic development.
This fund will support the development of new businesses and the expansion of small businesses in rural areas. And it can assist in training more people to fill the positions being created by employers in rural areas.
Going back to the start of the week, he announced his health care stability plan, designed to limit the damage from Obamacare's collapse. It would preserve protections for those with pre-existing conditions and provide $50 million to help people pay their skyrocketing Obamacare premiums.
Our health care stability plan is the Wisconsin way to provide stability and peace of mind for our citizens.
Last week, he called a special session for welfare reform. He wants to expand work requirements, implement drug testing, and require ID photos on food share cards.
Now, some, maybe even in this Capitol, will complain that our reforms are about making it harder to get government assistance. The truth is, our reforms are about making it easier to get a job.
And for over a year now, Walker has constantly looked for ways to increase K-12 funding. His latest plan would put another $6.5 million into sparsity aid, raising the per-pupil rate from $300 to $400. He also wants to give low-spending districts the option of raising their revenue limits.
To ensure that every child across this state has access to a great education, we're going to find additional ways to put more resources into the classroom. A good school equals a great life, and we have some of the best schools in the country. We will build off of our historic investments into K-12 education.
On Wednesday, he announced plans to create a new child tax credit. That would come out to $100 per child, with checks going out to families this year, and a permanent tax credit after that.
Our reforms are working. The economy is growing, and Wisconsin has a sizable surplus. As promised, when we have a surplus, we will give it back to you, the hardworking taxpayers. You see, this is your reform dividend. You deserve it.
After the speech, Republican leaders in the Assembly and Senate said they're committed to getting it all done this year.
The governor talked to the caucus this morning, and we ran through a number of the provisions that he announced this afternoon, and they were all well received.
We have a busy spring session. There's lots on our agenda. A lot of the things Governor Walker talked about, Assembly Republicans have been working on for the past several months to begin with, so we are glad to be his ally and partner, and I'm very confident we'll be enacting, if not all, the vast majority of his proposals by the end of the session.
The Joint Committee on Finance plans to meet next week to start going over the funding. For the McIver Institute, I'm Bill Osmulski.